Hello, everyone. I am back. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And as you know, I always bring you champions, people who are going to inspire you, people who bring a new knowledge that's going to help you to go to the next level of your greatness. And today we're going to talk about a very, very interesting subject because, we're talking about reimagining education for empower future. And we've seen what COVID has has resulted in educate have done to education. And the but the concept of reviewing and thinking about a different way of educating the youth or educating people is not new. Some of the educator already with the fourth industrial revolution happening, everything going really fast. There've been a lot of talk about reframing the learning, the way we teach, the way we learn, and really capturing all the diversity and the complexity and the speed of how things are going. So before we go deep into the subject, today my guest is Dr. Shirley. You've probably seen her, especially if you are on Facebook or on social media. She's amazing. She's doing so many things and really creating an impact globally. She's the director of School of Education at Adamas University, and she's been in the education system for more than 20 years, and she's dedicated her life toward the promotion of child-centric and activity-oriented education. So a very passionate educationist, a global thought leader, and like I mentioned to you, she's been speaking internationally, and she's a renowned speaker, and she's won several awards. But I'm just going to stop here because the list is very long. She's been, among India top 50 women leaders in the education industry and top 20 revolutionary education leaders. So a very experienced, an expert in education. And today we will talk about a very important subject for us, not only for us as parents, but also for the students, the younger generation, and what's next for them as far as education is concerned. So I'm not going to stay long. Have everything ready for you to take notes, and let us know if you're watching live. Let us know where you're watching from, or if you have the opportunity to watch the replay. Please comment on during the show when you watch it, and then we will address any insight that or question or comment that you're gonna raise. So let's start and have Dr. Shirley with us, and start this amazing conversation that I'm really looking forward to. So let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Virai Telekima Global Leadership Organization.
Feel is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily actions.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
Don't deprive the world of your greatness. Please. Don't do that anymore. Dare to excel, dare to be sexy, dare to be you, dare to be the best version of yourself. impact yourself positively, and from there impact others. And you are not alone.
So welcome, Dr. Shirley. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It's always a pleasure to have you for those amazing conversations that you're doing and all the knowledge and insight that you also bring on all the platforms. So before we delve into the subject and topic of today, just want you to introduce yourself to the audience and let us know who you are and the key things that you want the audience to know about you.
Sure. So, right at the very outset, I would really like to thank you for extending this invite to speak on this platform today. And yes, I'm really looking forward to an engaging and a stimulating conversation, especially because the topic of our discussion today happens to be something which is so very close to my heart. So, well, to tell the audience a little bit about myself and the kind of work that I have been doing. So, this is Dr. Shauli Mukherjee. I would best define myself as a passionate academician, a global thought leader, and yes, an internationally acclaimed inspirational speaker as well. So it has been more than 23 years that I have, spent in the education sector, and in this long journey, I have been the principal as well as the founder principal of some of the reputed schools, international schools in West Bengal, India. Few of them had actually been established by me. And well, in that list, I would definitely like to mention two schools, especially Adamas World School and STEM World School. Now, why STEM World School? Because STEM World School happens to be the first STEM school in West Bengal, India, which was eventually awarded for being the second best international day school in the entire West Bengal region of India by Education World in 2016. So that happens to be my brainchild as well. So, after spending so many years in the field of school leadership and management, in the year 2020, especially during the COVID times, I had stepped into the domain of higher education, where currently I am actually associated with the higher education sector. I'm the director of School of Education at one of the premier universities of Eastern India. So, in short, this is how my professional journey looks like. But additionally, I'm associated with premier educational organizations across India as well as globally in senior advisory position and role. And in my current profile as the director of School of Education at Adamas University, well, I can say that I'm absolutely committed towards creating and nurturing the future teachers and the future researchers of tomorrow, whom I strongly believe will definitely be endowed with the power of creating a magic and creating a difference in the lives of many people around them through the ennobling power of education.
Fantastic, and we could already see the passion of the way you were bringing all of this together. But education is really an important aspect in the life of a country in the world, and it's important that we get the right education so that we can have people to contribute and create positive impact. So we're talking about reimagining the education system, but what are the key challenges that you see right now? I mean, we've seen with COVID a lot of a new aspect coming in, having the remote learning where it's not always been the case. So what are the key challenges, and how do you see things right now at this stage?
Uh, well, to answer your question, I would just like to state that one of the major challenge in bringing about a redefinition or a reimagination of our current education system, which is like, definitely the need of the hour. Well, the key challenge happens to be the fact that our histories have changed, our geographies have changed. But sadly enough, and unfortunately, our education system has not changed. It's still the same. It is still an essential byproduct of the 19th century industrial revolution, which still continues to promote a one size fits all educational structure. It's a kind of a system, it's so rigid, it's so conservative, and it's so, you know if I may say, redundant, absolutely, that it doesn't even realize the fact that each and every child is born with a unique blueprint, with an ability to create a unique world of difference around him or her. It is a kind of a system which does not even, you know accept the fact or acknowledge the fact that each and every child has his or her, unique passion, interest, talent, and contribution, right? So it is a kind of a system which treats all the young learners as essentially the byproducts, or rather the finished products, of this redundant and decadent system. So when I speak about reimagining and redefining education system, what I mean is that there is a need for a paradigm shift, first of all, in the mindset of the people, because unless you have this paradigm shift in your mindset, you cannot actually go about and create a whole lot of difference in the external world. So a paradigm shift is required from a too rigid, too formalized, and too organized kind of an education structure to a kind of an education system which is more open, more fruitful, productive, and a stress free teaching learning ecosystem. That is, in fact, the need of the hour. To speak about the key challenges, also, I would like to mention that our conventional educational norms actually force our children to draw and color within the lines,
Mm-hmm.
metaphorically speaking. So, if you see, that really means that we are actually training our children to conform and to comply rather than to create or to innovate,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, there is absolutely no wonder that why our children, who are actually bubbling with energy, creativity, and curiosity, they actually struggle to realize their true potential, because the system is such that the system promotes that you have to conform and comply and obey, and you cannot have your own way, you cannot have your own say. So this is a kind of a system that we have which needs a complete change or a
Fantastic, and you're right, because we've seen, like you said, things have changed. We are now in a different revolution. We know things are going really fast. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We're talking about metaverse. We're talking about, everything is changing so quickly, and it's so complex. So if we don't, prepare our children for this kind of world, it becomes really difficult for them to even participate, and not alone thrive as well. So what are the key thing that the key strategies or tool that you see can actually work to shift this system, or to shift the paradigms that are currently dominating in the education system, in this rigid education system?
There are, in fact, a lot of things that we can do. And in fact, as educators and as parents, we
Mhm.
have, immense responsibility and at the same time, immense power in our hands So, in the last 2 or 3 decades, we have seen that there have been so many changes, there have been so many transformations in almost all sectors, But perhaps, I have spoken about some of the challenges, but I also have to say that perhaps there is one profession which still attracts a lot of prestige and a lot of love and respect, and that is teaching profession. Because it is still considered to be one of the noblest of all the professions. It's still considered that it's in the hands of the teachers and the educators that the entire, future of your nation, or rather the future of your world, lies. So I think one of the key things that we have to think about as educators is that we have enormous power and enormous sense of responsibility with us. We can actually, change lives, we can impact lives. So it is not about a single child. So when you say or do certain things which sort of influences or impacts the life of a child, you are actually touching and impacting the lives of the family of the child, the extended family of the child as well. So you never know where your influence actually ends, right? So as educators, we have to understand that this is a kind of a position that we are in currently, and we have to work accordingly. Also, I would like to state that, being the 21st century educators, so, it's a whole lot of difference when you are an educator belonging to the 21st century VUCA world, which is a volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous world, and you are dealing with Generation Z, whose demands, whose needs are so very different from ours, so your way of thinking also should be, a bit different from the rest. So, as 21st century educators, I believe that there has to be a striking combination of two things. So if you are really, terming yourself as a 21st century progressive educator, well, you must have a beginner's mindset. Now, what I mean by beginner's mindset, it's a kind of a mindset which is completely open and flexible and responsive towards a lot of new learning and the changes that are happening around you. You cannot shut yourself up, and you cannot say that, no, I'm not going to learn, or I'm not going to transform myself the way the world is transforming. You cannot do that if you are a 21st century educator. So you need to have a beginner's mindset, but along with that, you also need to have a challenging and a questioning spirit. The challenging and the questioning spirit will actually help you to challenge and question each and everything around you which you feel is not working anymore, which you feel has become redundant and obsolete. So you need to challenge the status quo. And who else will do that? Accepting maybe the educators. So they are the ones who will be the torch bearers for, all the progressive and the empowering changes that we would, like to see happening in the world. So we need to have a beginner's mindset, and we need to have a challenging and an inquiring and a questioning spirit always. So we have to lead the way.
And I think that's the challenge right now, is that, we rely on the teachers, but then nothing is done to give them the space and the platform to develop those skills that are, very important for to teach, this new generation in a VUCA world where a lot of, a lot of things are changing. It's volatile, it's uncertain. You can't really plan. So the creativity and the innovation has to come in. But the most important thing is to be along, as a teacher, understand that you don't know everything. So you have to always, learn from your student, but also learn from the environment where you are. It's not something static. And that's when I really want to, to bring in the technology, because obviously that's that's a big aspect now into everything that we do. So how do technology come into all of this? This obviously you mentioned to have a beginner mindset, to have a challenging and questioning spirit. Do you think technology should be also a must for the new educators, and what do you think about it?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no denying the fact. I mean, it would be foolish and ridiculous if, an educator or a learner, even in that sense of the term, if they deny the usage or the importance of technology, especially during the post COVID times. So, I would really like to bring here the perspective as to what has happened during the last maybe 1.5 years or 2 years or so, when the entire world has been embroiled in this global pandemic. So, when you say that, yes, it's so very important for the teachers to keep on learning, continuously learning, lifelong learning skills that they need to master, I would just like to add that along with lifelong learning skills, they also need two more skills. And
Mhm.
that is, they need to unlearn and they need to relearn. So both are vitally important. So it's not only important that you are learning, it's also important that you have to unlearn a lot of things that you have, that that is there as a blockage in your head. So you need to unlearn a lot of things, and unless you do that, you are never going to relearn new things. So coming to technology, yes, during these difficult and trying times, something that we have noticed is that the entire world was suffering, but from the lens of a progressive educator, I feel a little bit, I see the entire thing from slightly different lens. I have seen a lot of positive disruptions happening in the field of education during the COVID times. A lot of positive disruptions. I've seen a lot of innovation. I've seen a lot of creativity, happening in the field of education. People became more open to embrace a lot of changes. Doesn't matter that, why, because uh, we all had been pushed to the edge. So we never
Mhm.
had an option apart from not trying the innovative and the creative ways. But whatever the reasons might be, we have to see what the outcome is right now. So
Mhm.
after 2 years as educators, we can vouch that we have all evolved as a much better version of ourselves as
Mhm.
teachers and educators. And credit goes to technology. But I have to say, I have also to state here that technology was very much there even before
Mhm.
COVID. But maybe we have never thought of the benefits of a technology embedded teaching learning ecosystem, the manner in which right now we feel. So if you ask any educator at any part of the world right now, he or she will be claiming with a very very confident spirit that nothing can go back to the pre-COVID times. So
Mhm.
whatever we had done in the last maybe before 2 years, we cannot revert to that times, because
Mhm.
these 2 years have been an eye opener for the educators, the parents, and the children. And I would also say to the educational policymakers, to the government as well. So,
Mhm.
had it not been for the global pandemic, I strongly believe that these positive transformational shifts would have taken maybe another 10 or 15 years.
Mhm.
So it's only because of the pandemic that we have seen these positive shifts happening in the last, you know, maybe in the span of 1.5 years or 2 years. So in that sense, COVID is actually a blessing in disguise, especially pertaining to the field of education.
Mhm. And that's amazing, isn't it? Something that we looked at first as a really negative influence But then in some area in education, we've discovered how powerful it's, it is, and how, we can actually look at alternative and accelerate, the development in the education system, and accommodate, more style and diversity, and being inclusive as well. Because I think that's been the lesson as well, is that, technology bring another aspect, and then we get to include a little bit more people. So we have some comments here. We have Sean. Hey Sean, welcome back. How are you? So she is so that's awesome for a woman, for a woman in India. And she's also talking about young girl have more opportunity for education because of education, such as yourself. And because a woman who is educated educate the family. And I think you mentioned the impact of educators beyond, the classroom. They actually have an impact in society, in, at a higher level. And there's no limit, and that's important to remind. And she said, okay, many great things come out of what seems to be a negative force. So talking about, the pandemic. So we're gonna have a small break, and we'll be back, and continue this very, very insightful conversation, and really delve deep to know exactly, concretely, how can we put some steps to build, what we think is the best system for this, time of what, as you mentioned, this VUCA time. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back, and to continue this amazing conversation with Dr. Shirley. So we are back. We are back with Dr. Shirley, and one question that is going to be very provocative is it. So, what is the ideal, education system, as you see it?
Our current education system is something which is not going to serve the needs and demands of our Generation Z at all. So it is absolutely based on a one size fits all model. It is a kind of a system which does not encourage the fact that a child is inherently born creative and curious right from the very beginning. So it is our kind of a system, like the current education system, unfortunately, uh, puts a lot of, curb, and puts a lot of halt and pause to the child's natural and inborn ability to ask a lot of questions. So it's a kind of a system which encourages you to find out one correct answer or solution to the problems, rather than encouraging the ability to come up with meaningful questions. That is the sad fact of our current education system. It encourages the children to draw and color within the lines, that is, to conform and to comply, not to create or to innovate. It is sadly a kind of a system which, uh, you know, which gives you a kind of a sense right from since your childhood that it is so very important to come first in everything. That is, cutthroat competition is the key. You have to come first in everything, be it in academics or in sports or in extracurricular activities. You have to come first in everything. There is no other option. Though the 21st century VUCA world is a kind of a world which relies on two strong pillars, and that is cooperation and collaboration and not cutthroat competition. But still, our current education system forces our children to enter into a kind of a rat race where they will be fiercely competitive without even thinking about the benefits and advantages of collaboration and cooperation. It is also a kind of a system which negates the importance of the other kinds of quotients and only highlights on the importance of one quotient, and that is intelligence quotient. So there is so much of hue and cry about IQ. So
Mm-hmm.
everywhere it is IQ, but what about EQ? Though significant research has proved that more than 80% of the success in your life, be it in your professional sphere or in your personal endeavor, it actually rests on your EQ and not on your IQ. But yet, our current education system gives so much of importance to IQ and neglects EQ. Why only EQ? Also, it neglects the other quotients, other kinds of quotients. And while I'm talking about the other kinds of quotients, I'm specifically hinting at say your passion quotient, your
Mm-hmm.
happiness quotient, your spiritual or your social quotient, your resilience quotient, and most importantly, what COVID has taught all of us. What about your adversity quotient, AQ?
Mm-hmm.
Are we actually training our children? Are we actually educating our children as to how they would be dealing with the vagaries of life, how they would be dealing with the uncertainties of life? Are we at all educating our children in those lines? No, we are not. Are we actually, through our education, trying to give them a kind of a hint or a signal that the process is more important than the outcome? No, we are not. We sadly come from a kind of a culture wherein we still promote and celebrate the board results, the mark sheets, the score sheets, the accolades, the degrees, the certificates. We
Mm-hmm.
do not even consider the process through which a child or a learner or a person achieves those milestones and outcomes. So, in short, we are not,
Mm-hmm.
promoting, or we are not focusing enough on how to develop the growth mindset in our children, because we are always harping on the outcome and not the process. Also, additionally, I would like to state that our current education system tragically enough, it focuses on what the child can't do rather than what the child can do. So, there is a shift. So, the moment, even as a parent, forget being an educator. Why I'm saying as a parent, because each and every parent is an educator in the true sense of the term, right? So, even as a parent, when significantly focus on what your child can do rather than what he or she can't do, there is a very, very meaningful shift that happens. So, that is required in us. I mean, we are the ones through which the change will happen. Our
Mm-hmm.
children are completely fit and fine. If you ask me, there is absolutely no requirement of any kind of change or transformation in our children. They are natural moonshot thinkers. They are naturally curious, they are naturally inborn creative, so they are the superheroes, in fact, and the superheroines rather. So the problem lies with us. The problem lies with us, the adults, the educators, the parents, the policymakers, wherein we feel that we know everything and we have to dictate each and everything and they have to follow us. Problem lies there. So we have to, craft a kind of a learner centric ecosystem where the child is truly at the center of the education system and not the teacher or the parents or the educators. So we need a system which revolves around the child. We need a kind of a system wherein we would be observing the knack of the child. We will be observing, the likes and dislikes and the natural curiosity of the child. And accordingly, we will be crafting a kind of a personalized and customized curriculum that will suit the needs and demands of that particular child. We need a personalized education system, not a one size fits all structure.
And it's a challenge because, as you know, tradition cultures are really strong. So how do we dissociate that from, the education, traditional education system? Because it has an impact. You go from one country to another, there are different, cultural, things happening. There are different, traditions. How do you think it affect also the education system and the way we teach our children, not only as parents but also at school?
It has an enormous impact, it has an enormous influence. And why only schools? We can start right from the family, because socialization and education starts right from the family. It starts from your mother, when she starts, uh, automatically in an autopilot mode, when she starts differentiating between a boy and a girl using the color code pink and blue. So it starts from there. It also starts from the time when your parents maybe have thought that if you're a girl, then you would be very happy if you get a doll for your birthday gift. And if you're a boy, you would be happy to get a gun or maybe a toy gun or a toy car. So it starts from there. The education also starts from this kind of an upbringing where we tell a lot of fairy tales to our children, where we see that, uh, the female protagonists, they are all slim, fair, and beautiful. But at the same time, they're all, helpless, and they're all waiting for that prince to rescue her. So it also starts from those fairy tales wherein we show that, uh, the so called villainous characters are all with superb intelligence and ambition. We have to be very mindful about all these things because these are also education, right? In the true sense of the term. So, what are we actually telling our girls and boys since their childhood? That you need to be slim and fair, but completely helpless, if you have to be termed as so-called good, or if you really have a lot of ambition and if you have a lot of intelligence, well, the society may construe you as a villainous character. So is this the kind of a signal or a message that we are trying to give to our younger generation when we are narrating those oft repeated fairy tales? So we as mothers, we as grandparents, we as parents, we also have to be mindful about each and everything that we are doing to a child since his or her childhood. Then comes schooling, you know in a school where, kind of a system which focuses on what you are unable to do rather than what you are able to do, a kind of a system which always forces you to seek validation from outside rather than teaches you to accept the way you are. So these are all the deadening factors, you know so unless we really think deep enough and try to bring about a kind of a change first in our mindset, you can never expect any kind of transformational shift in the outer world. because ultimately everything happens from your inner world, right? So, and I always, I always have believed in my life that you really do not have to do great things, all together. You can start with very small baby steps, but do it with a very, very proper intention and a very proper vision. So if your intention is clear, if your vision is sound, your vision acts as a very, very strong magnet to pull people towards your vision as well. So, purpose is something which is very important. We have to ask always, as educators and parents, that why we are doing what we are doing. This is something so important, especially in the context of education currently, when in the post-COVID times, you know the world, I mean, it has been proved that the world does not require mechanically trained minds, minds which are loaded with facts and figures, minds which are systematically formulated to think alike. No, that is not what the world is looking out for. Rather, what the world is looking out for are actually creative and innovative minds. Minds which are capable of out of the box ideation, minds which are capable of divergent thinking. That is what the world requires right now. So, are we doing enough? Are we doing our bit to educate our children in such a manner that they will be developing and they will be evolving and growing to become the creative problem solvers of tomorrow? Are we doing enough? So we have to ask ourselves. No, we are not. You know why? Because we still sort of stigmatize failures and mistakes, and we don't realize that both failures as well as mistakes are essential components of an effective learning ecosystem. We still don't allow our young learners to, young learners more time where they can actually experiment, explore, and share, and do something with their with their novel visions and with their novel ideas. We don't allow all these things to happen. So, so we have to bring in this kind of a transformational shift first in our mindset as parents, adults, and educators. Then only we can hope to see those changes being materialized in the outside world.
So how do we communicate that? Because this is really a strong message, and those are not the message that we hear everywhere. And so what is the strategy? How do we build this momentum where not only the parents, because as you said, it starts with the parents, but then the educator or anybody involved in building the mind of young people. How do we get this message and make them live this reality, because that's a difficult, that's a difficult step.
It is extremely difficult and challenging, but I would just like to state that it is difficult and challenging because it is actually questioning something that we have always done. You know,
Exactly.
it is actually questioning our comfort zone.
Hmm.
So we all are so very comfortable in our cocooned state where we are not able to, uh, make those leaps and shifts, because we know that the moment we do those things, it's going to be first and foremost uncomfortable for me, right? So it's better, whatever the situation is, it's better that you should remain in that situation only. And you are so very correct and right, I would say, because even in my professional journey, when I, was so very frustrated at the way in which education was delivered, and each and every day I used to think that uh, everything that I was doing and everything that we had been doing as teachers, these are absolutely incorrect way of delivering education, and we are in fact doing a disservice to our children. That in fact acted as a very, very strong trigger, and that led towards establishing a school with a very big difference. And I mentioned to you about STEM World School. It's a kind of a school which I had established in India, where there are no standardized curriculum, you know, where standardized tests are also not there. We never had textbooks till a particular grade, where everything was done in an experiential fashion. So it was truly a child centric and an activity oriented and an experiential way of teaching and learning that used to happen in that school. And eventually, I really, as a means of experimentation, you can say, but with a very strong, vision that it's definitely going to happen one day. So I really saw that the passion and the happiness quotient of the children rising, you know. So I saw that happening. But even in order to do that, let me tell you, I had faced enormous challenges. I had faced a lot of resistance. And as you had rightly pointed out, that it's not often the parents. Parents, though, definitely they are, I mean, parents are the ones who will be resisting any kind of positive and transformational shifts. They will be the first ones to do that. But even a very unfortunate learning from my end was that the educators were also resisting these changes because they were so happy in their comfort zone. They were also not ready to learn and to relearn and to unlearn. So they were also not ready to do that. They were also not ready to take that leap or that shift. So they're so comfortable in that teacher centric education system where, the chalk and talk method is there and the sage in the stage. So they never thought that the time has come where the teacher needs to be a facilitator, where the teacher will maybe not be termed even as a teacher, but rather as a mentor or a coach or a facilitator. So it was so very difficult for them to accept that these are the things that needs a complete shift. So for me, something that luckily and coincidentally clicked when I was establishing that school. I was very very categorical that I'm not going to hire any so-called senior or experienced educators with 20 or 30 years of experience, with a baggage and a load of a lot of certificates and degrees. I'm not going to do that. So if I'm going to think about a completely new and a different kind of an education system, well, I need freshers for that. I need minds which are fresh. I need minds which are able to, accept challenges and the new things, minds which are completely receptive. Now, it really worked for me, let me tell you. So when I hired people who were, complete freshers, so I saw results coming because I never had that kind of a resistance.
um, and that's a
Often your
revolution.
baggage creates a lot of problem.
Yeah, that's a revolution that you're starting, isn't it? And it's good. And like you mentioned, COVID put everybody in the corner, and it's the right time to start those revolution and to push forward, because now people have passed the stretch line where they were uncomfortable to become uncomfortable. So now they basically have no choice. They have to accept this, the fact that they're not going to be comfortable anymore. So whatever it's happening, they have to trust the process, and they have to go for it and keep pushing. So that's an important step. So we have again, Sean is here. She's been very active on the comment box there. I don't like standardized setting. It's the way to rule out children, which is the service. Yes, definitely. Many children are intelligent, but due to standardized setting, they're not given the opportunity, and that's exactly, that's correct. And and parents have to be aware of that, because sometimes we just take, whatever it's imposed to us at school, or in a education setting, as truth. But we are the one who know our children better, so we should be pushing back, and make sure that we put our children in an environment where they can actually grow, where they can be, have self-esteem, believe in themselves, and really go, to the push their limits and understand that it's okay to fail, it's okay to, to have it wrong. It's part of the process. It doesn't mean that you have to be ostracized, or you're completely a bad person, and that's really what we want to avoid. So we're gonna have another break, and we will be back for, the last part of the show. And for those who are going to join us, watching the show, please let us know what you think. And we have, obviously, Sean here, who is very, very active. And when I see all the comment, I just realized that this is a very, very insightful conversation, and she's learning so much from it. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in few minutes. So we are back. We are back with Dr. Shauli, and we've been, talking about reimagining the education system to empower, the youth, and everyone, that is part of this industry, and also understand that, by education is actually key, because it's not just empowering at school, but it's also empowering for the future, for life, for how we're going to interact with people in the community, how we're going to interact with our future, colleagues, how we're going to interact with our children later on, and how we're going to interact with people who are different from us. So it's a key set, of skill that we need to be able to function and express ourselves, because at the end of the day, functioning, but also express ourselves and become the best version of ourselves. So as as we went through the conversation, I could see, so the passion of, changing what's really right now very rigid. So you've done a lot. I mean, you've initiated a lot of projects, started new schools with new concept, new strategies, and new way of, educating. So what's next? What's really the legacy that you want to leave in, in all of this?
That's an interesting question. Well, I would like to state that I would love to continue the kind of work that I have been doing, because I'm a kind of a person who has actually turned her passion into her profession. So for me, it has been a conscious intersection of what I was good at doing and what I loved doing. So passion always comes foremost in each and everything that I do. I would definitely love to continue the kind of work that I have been doing, creating more impact, creating more, real difference in the lives of people around me through the power of, education in the true sense of the term. But to answer your question a little bit more in a more specific manner, well, in the last 20 years, I have been dealing with the children. I have been dealing with the parents. Yes, I have also been dealing with the teachers. But currently, as my current profile entails, that I actually deal with the teacher trainees, and that is the future teachers of tomorrow, as well as the teacher educators. So this is a different section that I'm dealing with currently. You know, so, and I feel so happy that, I'm dealing with those kind of people who are actually responsible to bring about this transformation. So uh, perhaps in the last 1.5 years, I have got the opportunity of working very, very closely with the people who will ultimately be bringing about a lot of change and a difference in the lives of the children. So I'm talking about my current students, who are all prospective teachers, who are all the teacher trainees, the student teachers. So I'm also dealing with the teacher educators, you know the educators who are dealing with the education of the teachers. So these are the two sections that I'm dealing with currently, and I feel that these two sections of people are, in fact, the key people who can bring a lot of transformation in the field of education. So I'm enjoying the kind of work that I have been doing, and I feel that. You know it's completion, it's a kind of a completion, because so many years I have dealt with children and parents, and now I'm dealing with the ones who will be the teachers and the researchers and the teacher educators of tomorrow.
Fantastic. That's really powerful. And I have a question from Sean here. Yes, that's interesting. What's next in the legacy? And she wants to know how she can get a STEM school in that part of the world. So if you can have it at the back of your mind, I'm sure you're not going to respond fully here, but then connect with her, because she wants to. I think she's been inspired by the kind of teaching that you advocate and champion in your school. So she really likes to have, she would like to have the same there. So, Sean, I would advise that you connect with Dr. Shirley after the show, and then maybe talk extensively with her about, what you're looking for, and what's it's possible in your part of the world. But before we leave, Dr. Shirley, how do people get in touch with you if they want to continue this conversation? Because I think there's more that they can learn from you and the work that you're doing. So how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I would be so happy if, like-minded people reach out to me and connect and try to connect with me. So I'll definitely be very happy to do that. So I am a kind of a person who is extremely active on my social media handles. I'm quite active on Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. So I am, in almost all the social media platforms. So anyone who is willing to connect with me can connect with me through the social media platforms as well.
Fantastic. It has been an amazing show, amazing insight, and lots of learning. And I think, Sean once said, will agree with me. We've learned so much. And the most important thing is to understand that, they are alternative to education. And it's important to look at how we can build an education system that is inclusive, that is, and diverse, to take into account the particularity and the gift that every single child has, instead of putting them in a box where they can't even express themselves. So thank you, Dr. Shirley, for your participation and for being with us today. It has been really amazing to have you with us. Any
Thank you
last
so
word that
much.
you want to
Sure,
leave the
sure.
audience with?
I would first of all, I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to you for inviting me on this platform. And in fact, you have spoken so much about me, but honestly speaking, I keep following you on Facebook and on all social media handles, and I know the kind of amazing work that you have been doing. So really inspiring, and I would, love to see that you continue doing the amazing and the wonderful work that you have been doing. And yes, well, my last words or my last message to all, perhaps to all the educators and to all the parents, would be that, um, there is absolutely no need to bring about any change in our children. There is absolutely no need to fix them, because they're not broken. so they're whole, they're complete. So perhaps what is required is to bring about a lot of changes in ourselves and in our mindsets. The day we are able to do that, things will be things will be absolutely right, and things will be absolutely the way in which we want them to be. So instead of concentrating on how to fix our children or how to mend them, or maybe how to repair whatever has gone wrong in them, instead of having that kind of a mentality, well, let us introspect and reflect, and let us bring about those changes in ourselves. The rest will take care of itself.
Fantastic. So great message, inspiring. So parents, teachers, and also students listen and please, take this into account and understand that we are all unique. And in the education system, this uniqueness has to be taken into account if we really want to have, happy, happy citizen, happy, you know, uh, uh, citizen of the world, and make an impact, a positive impact in the world. So thank you very much for those who are watching the show today, and a particular thanks to Queen Sister Sean for being with us today, and for for participating, and also being part of the conversation. So thank you, and I will be back for another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show on Monday. And on Monday, we're going to have a gentleman, and we're going back again to the US. So stay tuned and join us on Monday. But from now, thank you, bye, and have a great weekend, and enjoy the the beauty of life, and enjoy being with yourself, and understand and really the gift that you have, because we've talked about us being unique, and so enjoy this uniqueness and the gift that you have, and step into your greatness. That's my message for you today. Bye bye, and thank you again, Dr. Shauli, for being my guest today.